Hey everyone, it's Lauren De Laguna, and I'm live with Frantic Missy. And tonight we are going to be doing, instead of an interview where we're trying to discover everything about Frantic Missy, even though I'm sure she's a very fascinating woman, I know she is actually, we are going to be doing a deep dive into some true crime cases in which Frantic Missy has been following very closely. You even wrote a book, isn't that correct? I'm not
I
sure.
did, but under my editor told me that I should never publish it because I could get sued. Yeah, I even was offered the option to edit all the names, change all of the details, and then publish it and make it a #1 airport best-selling hit book.
Yeah.
And I told him to, no.
So you're just okay. Well, I want to get into that into a minute, but essentially, what can you tell us the two cases that we're covering tonight? It's McCann. It's
Madeline McCann and Brittany Drexel. Yes.
Okay. So what happened, and which one happened first?
Well, Madeline McCann happened first. She was taken from her home in Portugal, or excuse me, her vacation home in Portugal, and she basically went on to encapsulate the news. Like everyone's like, "Where's Madeline McCann? Where's Maddie?" There was over $1 billion, capital B, $1 billion put into research trying to find Madeline McCann. The basis of the case are that she disappeared. The mother has been dragged through all kinds of investigational series by different people.
Who raised the billion with the B dollars?
Like all the British people, because she's a British child, and like everyone wanted to know where Maddie was. Everyone was really worried about her.
Or was like their governmental funds as well looking for her?
There's a bunch of different people that went into this, and like the government itself did a big chunk of the searching for Madeline McCann. Yes.
Okay, and then the other one, the next case that we're talking about, how soon after did that occur?
Brittany Drexel was in April, I think it's April 25th of 2009. And she was on vacation in Myrtle Beach. She wasn't supposed to go. She lied to her mother. Her mother said, yeah, I know, right? Nightmare parent situation. But her mother basically talked to her mother, and she was like, I want to go on this trip with my friends. And her mother's like, well, I don't really know these kids that well. I don't like the idea of you going down to Myrtle Beach by yourself. You're 17. I don't think it's a good idea. And she lied to her mother and told her mother she was going to a different set of friends' houses to go do spring break. And she disappeared. She was last seen like leaving a hotel room that a bunch of the guys that were down there with, she was leaving, and like that's the last anybody saw of her.
How old is she?
17.
And how old was Madeline?
I think she was 3 or 4. Okay. I mean, that's crazy. I know everything about this case, but like that doesn't even like come to my right in front of my brain. Isn't that crazy?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, her age doesn't like Madeline McCann. I think she was 3 or 4. I can't remember. Like, wow, that blows my mind that I remember all these other details and I can't remember her age.
This isn't a pop quiz. You're welcome to like look things up or be a little bit imprecise.
She was 3.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So, can you tell me what makes you think these cases are related somehow? Because those are two very different ages and they're different places, different. So, like, what do you think the relationship is?
There's a lot of connections between the two cases, similarities, to the point where, for example, they both just disappeared. Until recently, we weren't informed that they found Brittany Drexel's body. And I have my own doubts about that one. I don't trust the FBI as far as I can throw them or any of these other alphabet agencies. So there's questions with that. But Brittany Drexel, no one had found her. There were items of clothing that were found in different locations that supposedly belonged to these people. For example, with Madeline McCann, it was her clothes that were found in the airport. And for Brittany Drexel, it was her sunglasses, which were found in Santee, South Carolina. And we're going to get back into that in a little bit when we go on to the other things that are connected to this. And there was also the fact that they were both born with a birth defect, where they were both blind in their right eye. Madeline McCann had a disease called coloboma. Brittany had a disease called PVHP. Brittany had surgery to correct it, but she still wore contact lenses because their irises were misshaped. For example, Madeline McCann's eye shape was in the shape of a key. Her iris is in the shape of a key. And Brittany Drexel's eye shape was in the shape of a cross.
So do you think, like,
the chances of that birth defect? Very low. And for these cases to happen 5 years, less than 5 years, like apart from each other, that's really crazy. That the same things, if it weren't for the eye, the blind in the right eye thing, and the birth defect, these cases would probably have never connected for me. But those diseases are so rare.
Do you think people are kidnapping these people specifically to have people with these diseases, these eye diseases?
100%. I mean, because again, there's Brittany Drexel, blind in her right eye, Madeline McCann, blind in her right eye. And then there's a series of other people that are in powerful positions that also are blind in the right. For example, coloboma that Madeline McCann has, and it's like a 1 in a million chance. Like literally, like it's very rare. George Soros has it too, blind in his right eye.
Okay, so why don't, just for people like me, can we start at the beginning of both of these stories? So let's start with Madeline McCann. Can you tell us like the basics of it? Can you walk through that story from start to finish? So what happened there?
Absolutely. Madeline McCann, she disappeared from the vacation home. Everyone was looking for her. The parents were immediately suspect.
From England, and they were on vacation in
Portugal.
Okay.
Yeah, in Paradiluz, Portugal.
Okay.
And on May 3rd, 2007, she just disappeared. And her parents had gone to go have a meal with their friends and left the children unsupervised in the vacation home. And she disappeared from the vacation home while they were having dinner. The mother says she came and checked on them several times, but there's no proof of that. All we know is that she disappeared, and the mother was a person of interest. They didn't really find anything. Her mother's Kate. Her father was named Gary. She also had her 2-year-old twin siblings that were there, and other family friends and children that were left alone in this villa in Portugal, even though they were all from Britain. Yeah. The restaurant was like 55 meters, whatever that equals in American, 55 meters away from the vacation home that we left them in.
We'll have Henry convert 55 meters to feet for us because nobody does meters except Henry's actually from a place that would do meters. Boo, not American.
Right. Well, for marijuana, I don't think anybody would know what the metric system is at all.
At least not in America. In the rest of the world, they do.
Right.
Okay. So on vacation, bunch of families, bunch of kids. They were in a villa. There was a restaurant very, very, very close by to the villa, 55 meters. Dispute whether or not mom went to go check on the kids periodically, but at some point within the night, the child was taken.
The Portuguese police think that the parents were covering up, that they knew something. I still think the mother did, personally. But anyways, they continue.
The mother did it?
I don't think the mother did it. I have a far crazier theory of who did it. But
you think the mother's covering up?
Yeah, I think the mother was also. I think that there's we know with these child trafficking cases worldwide, we know that there are people that are participating in these international child sex trafficking rings. We know that for a fact. We know that there's international rings.
Why would the mother, though, cover that up?
Well, when you look at children that are, taken by predators, a lot of the times they have kids that they've already grown up in that environment, that they train to go talk other kids into come bringing them back to that place. I think the mother grew up in that kind of environment, and I think it's actually even possibly related to religious organizations.
Okay, what gave you this idea? What are you basing this off of?
Well, the mother has a very sketchy childhood. There's not a lot of information available for her. Even people from Scotland Yard were investigating this particular realm of thinking.
What do you mean, the sketchy? What do you think what do you mean by the mom has a sketchy childhood? Can you?
There's not a lot of details. There's not a lot known.
Okay.
Yeah, even Scotland Yard themselves were investigating the mother based on her childhood. And there's not, again, they don't provide a lot of details. There was just several articles where they were discussing how they were investigating her based on that.
I would love, and you're not on a time crunch at all, so like take your time. And this isn't like a pop quiz thing, but I would love to have one of those articles and like look at it and just talk about this thing with the mom, because I thought, and I could be mistaken, but I thought the mom felt very vindicated as of recently, because I thought that they arrested somebody.
They did arrest somebody. They arrested somebody. And again, like it's one of those situations where there's not, they purposely don't provide a lot of details to the public because they don't want to put out information. Yeah, you know how it works. Mm-hmm. I just know that they cleared the mother not too long ago. I think it was like 2017 is when they first like decided that definitely she wasn't in it. Here I can just read you what it says on clearly Wikipedia. Kate and Gary McCann. Madeline's parents are both physicians and practicing Roman Catholics. Kate Marie McCann was born in 1968 in Highton near Liverpool. She attended All Saints School in Antfield, and then Notre Dame High School in Everton Valley, graduated in 1992 with a degree in medicine from the University of Dundee. She went into obstetrics, like an optometrist. God, I can't even say this word. What's wrong with me today? Someone who delivers babies.
Do you mind putting that link in the private chat?
Absolutely.
You could pull it up on the screen.
Actually, can I send it to you on Twitter, because it's hard for me to pull it from my phone and put it on here. Is it okay if I just?
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever's easiest for you.
Okay, hang on.
And then you can continue reading it as I send it to Henry.
Just give me 1 second. I already had you pulled up.
No worries.
Yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns. Again, there's a reason that these cases are so mysterious, because there's a lot of weird, like hard to find things. And I also think that there's a lot of stuff that people, the Scotland Yard and other organizations do not want us to find out, because when it comes to trial, it's going to interfere with the validity of the trial and the ability to convict someone. So they do try to hold stuff to themselves. But that's that one paragraph on the Wikipedia page. There's pretty much no other article I can find that tells you very much anything more about her childhood, which I think is suspect. I mean, with all the people that are digging into stuff on the internet, like that paragraph is like the most people could come up with. I just find that weird.
Right.
But I don't think the mother did it. I think she might have known about it though. And so did Scotland Yard.
Okay. Why? So you think the mother was, so let me get this straight, just to clarify. And if I'm misrepresenting or explaining it incorrectly, let me know. So you feel like the mother, there's not anything known really that much about her childhood, or her childhood seems very sparse because only like a paragraph is known about her. And
couple 3 paragraphs, that's about it.
And so therefore she might have grown up in a sketchy environment, which would lead her to be willing to like sell her kid into some sort of sketchy environment.
Well, that's the worst thing about these kinds of cases, is people that are victims in these kinds of situations do not tell people, especially people that are older, that are mother's generation. They didn't talk about that then. And so that's one of the hardest things when it comes to these kinds of investigations, because they hold so many cards to the chest. There's no way to really definitively know. I know that if Scotland Yard dismissed it, that says a lot, because they probably dug deeper into this than any of us could get information on. But definitely the mother, a lot of people were blaming the mother. And she might have known. She might have. I do not know. I mean, I think that the markers of the case might indicate that she had something to do with it, but I'm not, Scotland Yard, and Scotland Yard let it go. So that's one of those things where I'm like, well, if they definitively looked into her and said she's out of this, then we're going to have to take their word for it, because they're not going to provide you more information anyways.
Oh, I am so sorry to be rude. I'm getting a notification that I need to plug in my laptop. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Can you please now go on to explain the Drexel story?
Oh, there's a little bit more about Madeline I want to get into real quick first. The first Portuguese inquiry was in 2007 and 2008. 12 days after her disappearance, a Portuguese property consultant, he became the first one they had in the case that they were trying to say it was his fault. They actually took him off the case. He was not it. There's witness statements saying that there was men behaving oddly near her apartment, near where the disappearance location was. There's a lot of early suspects that they went through, as people usually do in these kinds of cases, because she disappeared, like flat out disappeared. Then there was, in 2007 to 2011, they had an inquiry into the fund, which is a good question that you asked, into the funds that were set up under Madeline McCann's Leaving No Stone Unturned LTD. And that started on May 15th, 2007. 12 days after the disappearance, they set this up. And over 80 million people visited the fund's website in 3 months after her disappearance. And they collected, again, all this money. And then they were being questioned about what happened to the money and what they were using it for. And the parents were actually being investigated for that, for misuse of funds.
That's terrible. Would you know how they misappropriated the funds?
I haven't really looked into that one. That wasn't really something that interested me as much as it was the fact that they were being looked at. But again, there's so much to these cases. You got to kind of pick and choose what you do deep dives on. Here's what I do know about Madeline McCann that's very interesting. A lot of people aren't aware of. When Madeline McCann, the 2 days after Madeline McCann went missing, a guy named Sir Clement Freud helped her parents look for her and had her parents over to his house for tea. Now, if you just Wikipedia Sir Clement Freud, he's an MP. He's actually the grandson of Sigmund Freud. Well, he ended up being brought up for child, I don't want to say because I don't want YouTube.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Child charges.
Yeah.
His wife was apologizing for him, but he died before we could ever get any sort of convictions on him. But he was a prolific PEDO. And he lived
terrible.
2 blocks, 2 streets away from where this location was.
Wow.
Yes. And he's the grandson of Sigmund Freud. And the really crazy thing is his wife, the one that apologized for him, she's the character that they based Lucy on in the C.S. Lewis novels, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. She actually was one of those kids that was put on those trains that came out of Britain to get the kids out the city during the Blitz. And she ended up staying with C.S. Lewis, and that's how he based that character on his wife, Clement Freud's wife, the one that was apologizing for him.
Interesting.
Yes. There's a lot of twists and turns with these cases. There's a lot of weird stuff. But
But who was arrested in the Madeline McCann case?
The person that they got, again, they said that there's been police inquiries. I don't think they've charged him with anything yet. It's been going back and forth.
Wait, they haven't charged him yet?
They charged him, then they took the charges away, then they charged him again. It's a very weird up and down, back and forth situation. Again, this is one of those cases.
Can you pull up what's going on with the proceedings with the Madeline McCann case?
Yeah, in June of 2020, the public prosecutor in Brunswick had a possible involvement of 43-year-old Christian Bruckner, also known as Christian B, under German privacy laws. He's a convicted sex offender, believed to have been living in a borrowed VW camper van in the same area in the region that Madeline was disappeared in.
Huh. Wow, that's terrifying. That's
You can't even go on vacation anymore. But in July 2020, they also started searching his houses and all these other different places that are connected to the investigations. In October of 2021, the Mirror reported that Walters had become convinced that the guy that was investigating him, that Bruckner abducted and murdered Madeline McCann. Again, though, there's another man from Northern Ireland from 2013 that was discussing in the media about the disappearance. He was released from prison on sexual assault of his 4 daughters. And he moved to the port. Again, there's multiple people they've pinned this on, and it is one of those things where you pay attention, but you kind of put it aside, because until there's someone convicted, until I see something solid, I'm just gonna kind of put it aside, because in countries like Germany and Spain, they don't have the same justice system that we do, so we can't look at it from that lens. You know what I mean?
okay.
Yeah, the guy from Northern Ireland, he's dead. So yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot of people. The tabloids really pump a lot of this stuff up too. So again, you kind of can't. Yeah, see, it says right there.
Okay, could you now go into the Brittany Drexel case?
Yes. So Brittany Drexel, that's a crazy case. Again, I sent you a couple podcasts about it because it like goes into all the information. At first, when Brittany Drexel disappeared, the girls that she went down to Myrtle Beach with, the ones that she lied to her mom and said she was going with, well, they were like they were new friends of hers. They weren't like people that she knew well. She played soccer. She was very popular. She had lots of friends. She wanted to go into the fashion industry. She wanted to be like a hairstylist. She like had all these ideas and concepts of what she wanted to be as an adult. She had been through a divorce with her parents, had been through therapy, and I think she was also on antidepressants for a while there. And she lied to her mom, went with these girls that were not her friends. They were like new girls that she met through school. And the whole time, these girls were brutally, viciously mean to Brittany, left her out of things. As a matter of fact, that when she got abducted, when she disappeared, she was getting a series of mean texts from these girls that she was on the trip with in order for them to bring back a pair of shorts that Brittany was wearing that had borrowed. And that's how she ended up disappearing. So to go bring back her shorts to this girl she was staying with. They left her out of stuff. They found a pair of flip-flops. Matter of fact, there's a guy from the day before Brittany disappeared. Oh my God, I have his name written here somewhere. He actually went and talked to the police and helped defend the timeline of where she was at and tell the police where she was, because he had taken her back to the hotel from the beach because her friends had left her friends. And the guy that they were with was like a promoter. He was the initial suspect. Matter of fact, he left these people, the guys that she went to go visit in Myrtle Beach, they left their hotel in the middle of the night and went home and boarded up immediately, which is extremely suspicious. So they were the first set of suspects, the girls and these dudes. But it turns out like none of that mattered in the case. The real question about Brittany Drexel is, where her phone pinged last, which was like outside of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, outside of Charleston, between Georgetown and Charleston, in a place called McClellanville. And that's the last place that they had her phone ping. The first initial suspect that they had in the case that they could put any sort of like pressure on was a guy named Timothy Deshaun Taylor. Now, there's been countless articles. If you even Google the story, you're just going to find 3 pages of why it was wrong to assume he was a suspect. He was 16. He had one arm. But there's also a Dr. Phil video, a Dr. Phil interview from Brittany Drexel's father, where he went on a Dr. Phil show, where he discussed meeting a man who he was handing out flyers in McClellanville asking if anybody had information on Brittany. And he was handing out these flyers, and he met a car full of guys. And the guy driving the car had one arm, and he laughed at him and tossed the flyer and said, "You're never going to find that girl." And it turns out Timothy Deshaun Taylor, who became a suspect later on, has one arm. Yeah. Right up until...
what is the likelihood of having... Well, do you know how big that arm, like, or how big that, not how big that arm is, do you know how big that town is? Like, how many...
Well, it's a very, very small little fishing town. I grew up in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Matter of fact, I had my car break down at the end of the road where they supposedly like held this girl. My car broke down there before cell phones when I was like 16, because my parents were like camping at this place called Buck Hall, and my parents used to ride dirt bikes there all the time, like in the woods at the swamp trails and the Frantic Missy Forest, which is right there. And I know the location like very well. And my car actually broke down at one point at the end of the road where they said this like stash house. We'll get into that in a minute, that she was kept at. And the crazy thing is like, that's what got me into this case initially. But it wasn't until I was like looking at an old map that I had that my father found in someone's attic from like the 1930s, 1936 actually. I was looking at this map, because it was like right behind me when I was reading the newspaper article, and I was like, oh, where is this? You know, I know where this is. Like, where is it in relation to Myrtle Beach? Let's see how far it is. And I realized a very important fact. The Frantic Missy Forest is a very large, national forest. As you well know, there's a lot of disappearances in national forest, the 411, all that stuff. And here's the kicker, though. When I started researching this case, I was just looking at Brittany Drexel. Looking up stuff about her eye, I found stuff about Madeline McCann. Looking into more Brittany Drexel stuff, I found out that Brittany Drexel is not the only girl that disappeared in this area around Frantic Missy Forest. As a matter of fact, the guy with the one arm, Timothy Deshaun Taylor, well, his father, who's named Sean Taylor, and his uncle, named Randall Taylor, were actually the first immediate suspects in a little girl who disappeared in 1998 named Shannon McConaughey. They were the lead suspects in her disappearance. And they were let go because they said they didn't have enough evidence. And that would be one thing. But then, not long after, I think it was 2010, oh God, I was pulling this up right before and I didn't have enough time. Sean Taylor was also convicted of trying to kidnap another girl in Myrtle Beach, right 2 blocks away from where Brittany Drexel disappeared. Right?
Interesting.
The plot thickens, doesn't it?
Wait,
and again, every article is like, how could he get accused? How could he get accused? I'm like, well, the family has, and this isn't the only, Shannon McConaughey and Brittany Drexel aren't the only ones. There's 2 others. There's a girl named Crystal from Santee, and there's another one that I haven't found, like haven't finished looking into details on. At one point, I was going through all of the girls that have gone missing in this area, and I found so many cases that I'm like, hang on, maybe we got something here. And the fact that the FBI convicted someone else, the first guy they suspected, and then the guy that they finally charged Brittany Drexel with, he was their first subject. Now he's the guy that they arrested. Now, he was arrested in May of 2022, correct? He was tried in October of 2022 and convicted to life in prison. How many murder cases, especially high-profile ones, do you know, get wrapped up in a nice, neat bow in that short period of time, May to October? That's weird, isn't it?
Well, hold on. So it was a murder case, and the murder took place in May, or the trial began?
The murder of Brittany Drexel happened in 2009. They found the initial suspect. He was Raymond Moody, excuse me. He was one of the first suspects because he was staying in a hotel, like one of those, like, you know, one of those creepy hotels that you see in like San Andreas, like GTA stuff. He was staying in one of those, and he was their first suspect because he was a convicted sex criminal in California. And they dismissed everything about him, said that he wasn't a suspect. They started going down the trail of the Taylor family, which again is a deep, thick trail of people that have disappeared they've been connected to. The same family. Like, what are the chances, right? And their final conclusion was that Raymond Moody did it. They arrested him in May of 2022 this year, right? They found a body based on what he said it was. Do you know where they found the body? They found the body in the same location that another case is connected to that was reported and called in as a dumping ground for bodies back in like 2000 from this little girl and their mother that disappeared in 1987 and 1988. That's weird, isn't it? Same location.
How would he know that she was there, though, if he wasn't the person who put her there?
Well, again, like, we don't know. We're just told that's what he said.
Okay, so like we don't have the body we don't have the
they found the body based on his description of where he left it, is what they said.
Okay. But you don't think he's the one guilty. You think the one-armed man.
I think the one-armed guy works for someone else. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute.
Okay. Yeah. All right, continue.
So basically, like, again, like, he's been, Raymond Moody was convicted in October of 2022. And again, I started digging into these other cases. And Shannon McConaughey, she disappeared in 1998. They found her car burned in the woods, Francis Marion Forest, right? And guess where that was? Right where Brittany Drexel's phone last pinged, right? And then the father was one of the suspects. Her uncle, the one-armed guy, Timothy Deshaun Taylor. Randall Taylor was the number one, like, suspect in the case. They dropped the charges because they didn't have enough evidence, right? So when I was looking into this case, now you have to when you look at a map and you look at where the Francis Marion Forest is. Now, I used to ride dirt bikes through those woods when I was a kid. I worked as part of the Swamp Fox, for the Swamp Fox Enduro for the Family Riders Association here. So I grew up stomping those woods. And I knew when I saw the ping where it was, the road it was off of, the last one for her phone, I know that that's the same road that cuts through directly to Mount Holly, because I just know the roads. I know what it looks like. And so I'm looking at other cases, and I stumble across a case from 1988 from Annette Sagers, okay? And this woman, she disappeared at the end of the road in 1988. They found her car. They never saw her again. Basically, She was living on a 6,000 acre plot of land. Her husband was the caretaker. She had a couple kids, three of them, including her daughter.
Okay.
And her daughter was Karina Malinowski. Now, the mother disappeared. They found the car, wiped the fingerprints. She didn't show up to work, so her boss reported her missing. They said on the paperwork that she lived at the end of the road for the 6,000 acre property. A year later, in 1988, the daughter, Karina Malinowski, she disappeared at the same end of the road, last seen at the bus stop, saying, tell dad and my brothers that I love them. Never seen again. DNA test, nothing's coming up.
My mom went disappearing in a forest.
Into the road.
Probably wouldn't go into that forest.
Last ping of Brittany Drexel's phone through the woods to Mount Holly, and you know these people love. There's no holly trees here. What's up with that? Why is it called that? Well, it's a thing. You know, I don't have to tell you. I'm not going to get into it because I'm not going to discredit myself, but you know what I'm talking about when I say that. And so at the end of the road, those two people disappeared, right? So I started looking into the area. And I found on my old map, because that's where I was looking, I was like, this here. And this is a map I got in front of me. I can see the whole thing. Not like with Google where you're trying to look at it and it gets kind of, messy. I can see it all. And I started putting up little Post-it circles, right? And I've become a crazy person at this point. This is like 2019. At this point, I'm like inviting like people over to my house and being like, don't mind my murder board, right? Like I've got notes. I've like turned into like Charlie. It's always funny.
Do you have any pictures? Do you have any pictures that you may have taken?
No. How embarrassing. Like I have like my brother and his friend came over and my brother was like whispers to me. He goes to the bathroom and he goes, we got to go. You're freaking my friend out. I'm like, I haven't said anything. He goes, your murder board says it all. Because it got to this point where like it had taken over my living room. But like I had a whole corner of my room where I was just, putting up facts and like Post-it notes. And like I was like linking everything together because that's how crazy connected all of these cases are. So 1988, right? 1987, Annette Sagers. 1988, Corinne Malinowski, her daughter, right, who was 11. 11 months apart, disappeared, right? Nothing else is like, they didn't find anything. There's nothing. Finally, in 2000, on March 8th, 2000, a woman who owned a plantation right near there called Medway Plantation named Gertrude Legandry. You can pull her up. Gertrude Legandry dies. March 31st of that year, they get a call to the Berkeley County Police that gives, and I spoke to the lieutenant in charge of the case, so it's not like I talked to him extensively more than once. I've talked to Interpol, I've talked to everybody. And I talked to
Interpol about this?
Yes, I talked to Interpol about this stuff. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like I've uncovered some stuff that for some reason no one can seem to fit together. I don't understand why.
No one would listen. Uncovered that had not been uncovered until you found it.
But let me get there. So I really, when I look at the date the police call comes in with the anonymous reporting of where to find Annette and Corinne. You know where that location was? Where they found Brittany Drexel? That's where they found Brittany Drexel's body. Is the same area that Brittany Drexel's body was found, right? But on March 31st, 2000, the police get a phone call saying that's where to find Annette and Corinne in 2000. Okay. And so now they found Brittany Drexel's body this day in that area. They also found a pair of sunglasses they thought belonged to Brittany Drexel in that area a long time ago. So it's very suspicious. But here's the kicker. So I started digging into, I was like, well, that's weird. Who owns this property? And so I started digging into Medway Plantation. And I found the woman who owned the property was named Gertrude Legandry. Now, Gertrude Legandry was OSS, the only woman who was ever kidnapped by the Nazis and taken in seriously. She had a movie written about her starring Katharine Hepburn called Hollywood because she was a big game hunter with her brothers. Her daughter, Bakar Legandry, who owned the property at the time Brittany Drexel disappeared, she was known for her extremely detailed drawings of the human heart. She was an artist. She wore a red scarf and she wrote a book. I got a copy of it, right? And Bakar Legandry is also the only person who took video and pictures of RFK when he was getting shot in that hotel. Weird, right? She also formed the Medway Society. All that was like in Mount Holly. So I'm like, well, this is weird. You know, you got this woman that dies. Then this, report comes in to where to find these bodies, which they didn't find. Then, you've got Bakara Legandry acquires the property, and like she puts it up for a fire sale in 2009. I'm like, that's really weird. And the police the whole time, and all the police reports and all, they're saying that it is Mount Holly Plantation. Mount Holly Plantation was a freaking aluminum plant. How was there 6,000 acres to caretake? That makes no sense. So there was a lie on the police report for Annette and for Corinne from the beginning. They lied about where the location was. And that would all be crazy, right? Except for the fact that the day that I found out about Brittany Drexel and that they arrested someone, and it was Raymond Moody, right? The article that describes what happened, the next one underneath it was talking about trying to identify a body from the 1970s they found, guess where? At the end of that same freaking road. Yeah, cold case.
Pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy, right? And it wouldn't be crazy, except for the fact that now we're dealing with someone who clearly worked for CIA, worked for OSS, right? Had this property. She'd have huge Hollywood parties. Gertrude Legandry would have huge Hollywood parties. I went to the CFC, like College of Charleston archive, and actually went and looked at pictures.
So I see Henry pulled something up about her. What can you say her name again, really slowly?
Gertrude Legandry.
Yeah, let's look her up as well, Henry. Okay, continue.
And Bakara Legandry was the daughter, the one that took all the pictures of RFK. Yes. This sounds too much to be true, but it's all true.
No, it is all true. Yeah, no, I hear you. But okay, I'm just confused as to why do you think they stopped? Why do you think they stopped caring about the one-armed man?
I do not know. Again, if we're talking about a property where, again, and this is at the end of that road, and this is right in the area where all these other people have disappeared, right? All these girls, there's countless cases. There was one guy they found in Mount Holly that he was a 5-year-old child, and they found him in a cupboard, never solved, never knew who did it. It was in like the family shed. They looked everywhere. That's where they finally found him. Right about the time Gertrude Legandry owned the property. I would say that either Annette or Corinne walked into something they weren't supposed to see, and they just disappeared. And I think that's weird. And I think that the thing with Brittany Drexel and all these other girls, again, Shannon McConaughey, you can look her up too. Matter of fact, her parents right now, her family has a Facebook page that is it's called, hang on, it's under her name, Shannon McConaughey. And basically the latest post they have is January 5th saying, how about some justice for her? People have been asking how the Taylors became suspect by their own hands and crimes. Like, this is not, they want to exhume Shannon McConaughey's body, because even though they've given us the killer, they got him in prison, right? And they're saying for life in a very short period of time to try somebody for murder and convict them for life in prison. Now the family of Shannon McConaughey is begging for people to reopen this case and exhume her body. And because now they've got DNA, things they didn't have in 1998, and no one will listen to the family. Yeah.
Can they privately do it if they have the funds to?
I don't see them raising any money right now. I don't see that being a thing. I know that there was one small little blip on the local station, but for someone to sit there and say that this family is completely innocent, yeah, there you go. There you go. She's from St. Stephen. When you look at it on the map, it's right there in that area. And they found her, guess where, in McClellanville, see? My best way to figure it is that these guys, this Taylor family, that they work possibly for people that are bigger, because we know there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on, people that disappear and people that are using like ritualistic things. That's why I think that the eye thing is so important. Because I think
I was going to ask about that. Like, did the rest of those women that you mentioned have any issues with their eyes?
No, they didn't. But okay. I talked to a friend of mine who's a cardiothoracic surgeon. I was showing him pictures of Bakara Legandry's heart, and I was like, "Are these accurate?" People say they're accurate, and he looked at me and goes, "There's no way." He's like, "That's a child's heart," and he goes, "There is no flipping way." This is what my friend is, a cardiothoracic surgeon. He's an expert. He does this every day. He carves up people every day like it's nothing. And he looked at the heart and he goes, that's a child's heart. And there's no way that she could have drawn that from a heart in a jar. It had to have come out of body, because the minute you put a heart in formaldehyde, it actually changes color and it warps. She's got it 100% correct. She drew a fresh heart. That is what my friend said. And he is the most down-to-earth, quiet, normal, like surgeon guy you could think of. So for him to say that, I was like, okay, that's really weird. That's very strange. I'm just saying, like, what I've been told.
Right. Interesting. So what significance to her drawing hearts does that have to do with her?
I think that they were doing stuff with kids on that property for a long time, sacrificing people, performing all kinds of weird rituals. The mother, Bakara Legandry's mother, Gertrude Legandry, she'd been accused of taking people's kids before. It's very hush hush. Like, you literally, only found it in the archives about her at the College of Charleston, and they would not let me take pictures. Yes.
Okay. Like, is adrenochrome something that you believe, like,
no.
Celebrities?
I know that they go get blood facials. I think that's weird. I know that Kim Kardashian has talked about getting blood transfusions from her bodyguards. I know that. I think that's weird. I think this is something more than that. I think that these people, these are very old families. The father, Sidney Legandry, he was from New Orleans. Weird stuff goes on that we know that there's like a voodoo culture there. I think that there's a reason why Gertrude Legandry, when she changed the layout of the house. By the way, Medway is the oldest standing plantation house in the United States, by the way. Did you know that? It's the oldest standing plantation house in the United States. And she made changes to the house without checking with the Historical Society. When she bought it in a fire sale in 1929, when she bought the house, yes, after Black Friday. Weird, right? With that kind of money. And she bought the house with Sidney, her husband, in 1929, and she made changes to the house and never submitted those changes to the historical societies or got any permission for it. And on top of that, she made the entire property a bird sanctuary, so you can't get a cadaver dog on the site without going through a bunch of different government organizations.
Oh, smart.
Yes, and it backs up to a place called McCann Abbey by water, and McCann Abbey has their own scandals and their own issues. And here's the kicker. In 2009, after Brittany Drexel disappeared, McCann Abbey used to sell eggs at the, when I lived at Folly Beach, at the local little store. They were local, fresh grown eggs. And these monks sold them to everyone. McCann Abbey, after Brittany Drexel disappeared, declined to allow DHEP to come on the property to look at the property and quit selling their eggs all of a sudden. Right about the same time Bakara Legandry put the house on the market.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they back up to each other. Again, it's one of these, I know there's a lot of little things, but when you put all the little things together, it goes, you get a bigger picture. It's like a puzzle. Like, you don't know what you're getting a picture of. You know you've got a puzzle in front of you, and you're just taking pieces and you're going, this fits here, this fits there, this doesn't fit anywhere, I'm going to put it aside. And when you start assembling these pieces, a picture starts to appear. And when you look at all these facts, when you look at all these different things that would seem coincidental by themselves, now they seem like they might be something bigger. Again, I want to keep this as down to earth as possible, because there are people that have lost loved ones. They're grieving parents that have been lied to. They're grieving right now. Shannon McConaughey's family is desperately seeking justice for their child, right? And I want to respect them by trying to be as honest as possible. I'm just saying that there's things that the police don't look at, either because they're understaffed or because they don't care, because these are cold cases, or because they think they got the guy already. I'm just saying there's a lot of things we need to look into. And when you have all these facts, then you can take a different look at the case. And maybe if other people hear what I'm saying and they go look up and they start putting their mind towards it and they start doing their research, they also can add something to this. So eventually we end up in a place where we have answers to these questions for the families.
Okay. So what do you think is happening after these kids are kidnapped?
I think they're doing some sort of ritualistic thing with them. Although I really, for the longest time until...
Kids, so one was kidnapped in Portugal, one was kidnapped in Florida, right?
So the only connection between these two cases is the similarity to their cases, the fact that the person disappeared completely, The fact that we have, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff about the Madeline McCann case, and a lot of people are going to say that's debunked. But when you start digging into it, and you start looking at flight logs, you start looking at the neighbors that are around there, the people that were active in the search, when you start tying in people like, the neighbors and the people that are in the area, like Clement Freud, right? Clement Freud was also one of these people that was part of this community, and there's ties between the families that are in, here in South Carolina to the Freud family as well. So it starts to, I'm still putting the pieces together on this one. I wrote a 720-page book, and it wasn't enough room to get it all in. And there's stuff that I was still trying to put together pieces on, because the longer it goes after these cases, the more information comes out. The more people that look at this, the more information that comes out. So, there's a lot to it. Trying to sum it up is difficult.
Do you think these kids are being taken, and when they're taken, they're immediately, or do you think they're kept alive and they've gone through some sort of torture or?
Well, the ones that the Crystal Souls, the little girl that disappeared from, I think it was Bono Beach. I don't have the notes for her in front of me exactly. It's in another notebook. But she disappeared. The Taylor family was also a suspect in that as well. She disappeared. No one ever found her. Shannon McConaughey, they found her vehicle, and then they found her body later on in that same site. I think it was a couple months later after they found the car. I think that not all of them are for that purpose. I think that there's use of trafficking. I think that there's a couple of them that they've either sacrificed or kept for certain reasons. I mean, for all we know, this eye thing could mean that they are held in regard in, some of these other occult religions that still exist. Yeah.
Okay.
They could be a high priestess. Who knows? Again, I don't think that was Brittany Drexel. I really don't think that was Brittany Drexel's body. I think it was really weird how they wouldn't allow in an outside coroner. I think it was really weird how the FBI was the one running the case, and they went back to the first suspect, and it just seemed like a really strange, pinning it on someone. And then I'm like, well, why is the FBI the ones calling the shots here when they don't live here? They don't know the family. They're not from this area. They don't know anything about it. Why is the FBI the ones that is calling all the shots and lying about where locations are? There's a lot of history to this case where the FBI hurt the family and hurt the case and dropped balls, and there's been issues with evidence. And then you also have the same kinds of organizational issues with Madeline McCann case. Again, there are family ties. The Gander family.
Madeline McCann case wasn't handled by the FBI. It was handled by the Portuguese.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But they had the equivalent of the FBI in Portugal handling the same case. It's obviously not the same.
Do you think the Portuguese FBI equivalent work alongside with the American FBI to help
Of course, they always, because Interpol is the one who handled it. Interpol, the way they work is they work with the country's law enforcement in that location, and they combine the efforts of different law enforcements in different countries in order to make a final oversee of the case. That's how that works. And I spoke to people from Interpol. And I was like, look, I've been looking into this Legandry family. They have property up Martha's Vineyard. They've had, they're connected. The Medway Institute that Bakar Legandry, it was for UFO research. I can't even make this crap up. The Medway Institute that Bakar Legandry started here in South Carolina near this plantation in Mount Holly called the Medway Institute had Linda Rothschild and David Rockefeller as their members. So we're talking about, these are big names we're talking about. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, okay. Are there other big names in modern day politics or Hollywood? Who are...
Yeah. But,
people that you think are involved that we know of?
Well, one of the most interesting videos in the world, and I know that he's not everybody's favorite person, and that's fine. But Alex Jones did release a video in 2000. Just saying that name makes me look like a kook. I'm not saying I agree with the guy or like him at all. Matter of fact, I do not like him at all. I know his father's CIA.
What's wrong with Alex?
No, his father's CIA, so I got questions. I think he's doing the best he can. I think he's doing the best he can with what he's been given. I'm just saying that I want to make sure anybody who listens to this doesn't discount my evidence because I said I'm quoting a video that he made. But he did make that Bohemian Grove video, and it was the voice of the person guiding the. It was called the It was Bohemian Grove. They were doing the cremation of care ceremony in front of the owl god Moloch, okay? Which is where they burned the effigy of a child, hopefully, after they cast their cares upon the effigy of this child and burned it in front of the owl god Moloch. And the person guiding the ceremony was freaking Walter Cronkite. And you had, HW was there, Poppy Bush. There's a bunch of other people that were in, politics and in, these WEF, World Economic Forum, like there's a lot of big names that are there. So if they're willing to participate in Skull and Bones, and their ceremonies entail with that, and they're willing to participate in this Bohemian Grove thing where they burn a child, what makes you think for 1 second they're not doing this elsewhere in other locations that we are not aware of? And one of the best places I think to hide out would be a family-owned plantation that's a bird sanctuary. I'm just saying. 6,000 acres.
If it's a bird sanctuary, is it open to the public?
No. I couldn't even get people that used to work for the property to speak to me about the Brittany Drexel connections and the Annette Sager's case.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
they won't speak. By the way, the plantation was bought by a shipping mogul who is related to the Onassis.
Sorry, who's related to a what?
The Onassis. Yeah, see? Yeah. The Hoover. Yeah. Matter of fact, there's been people that have disappeared for speaking about Bohemian Grove, but there's all kinds of ritualistic stuff that goes on there. For people to think for 1 second that people are going to perform, for lack of a better word, I know it's not satanic or saturnic, there's an owl god ceremony, for lack of a better way to describe it. People that are willing to participate in these kinds of occult ritualistic ceremonies that, catch kids on fire to negate their own guilt. Don't think for 1 second that they're not doing it somewhere else. So we need to consider that to be something that is valid. They do this every summer, right, in that location, and we're aware of it, but it doesn't mean they don't do it in other locations. For example, Tony Podesta's paintings, the ones that he had with the little boys in the pool and all, the pool in question is actually from the Vanderbilt mansion. And that's been, no one's questioned it. There's pictures that you can see of the same pool. It is the same pool, okay? And here's the kicker. The Podesta's brothers, John and Tony Podesta, there's flight logs showing them going to, guess where? Visit Clement Freud, right about the time Madeline McCann disappeared. And I have it somewhere. It's on a hard drive. I cannot freaking find that information because it's a terabyte full of stuff I've been trying to dig through. And when I find it, I will definitely show it to you. I'll show it to everybody. But I have from like 2016 where I found the freaking flight logs that proved that they were there visiting Clement Freud. And Clement Freud says that they weren't at that time. It was another time. And they were seen driving a blue car, which was seen outside of Madeline McCann's area. So if we can connect them to this Vanderbilt pool thing, and we can connect, a lot of the same circles that they run into this, house of horrors that's been going on here in South Carolina, right? Then now we've got a straight line, and we can go, this whole thing can be blown out of the water. Again, they're very good at hiding their tracks.
Wow.
But this is a problem. Satanic ritualistic abuse is no joke. And if you don't believe me, like Drew Pinsky had on people, there's countless people that have been talking about this. Eliza Blue is all over Twitter speaking about it. This is a real problem. You got the littles that were in Hampstead Heath in Britain that they found out they were true, and they put those kids in an orphanage, and we don't even know what happened to them now. There's a lot of problems here. And there are some evil people out there, and I know people don't want to open up their mind to this being a thing because they feel like it's too far-fetched, but it's too realistic for you to ignore it. I know it's a difficult subject, and I know people don't like to think about these things existing, but they do. There are rings of people that drive around and look for kids. That's what they do. They take pictures like Polaroids and sell these kids online. It's a real big mess. We had a little girl that disappeared. I think it was about 2 or 3 miles away from me on the next island over, that the mother was beat to hell and back. She went in the hospital. But no one knew that the little girl was missing until the mother didn't come pick up the little boys, her other kids from school. Until then, the guy was gone. They found the little girl, and I'll pull it up real quick what her name is. I didn't know I was going to be talking about this tonight. But they found her because a sheriff in Alabama took a wrong turn. He took a different turn than he usually does to work and saw the car next to the railroad tracks down this dirt road that he was going down to get to work as the sheriff, and asked him if they needed help. And the guy goes, "Yeah, I'll help you," and took the little girl and was Karen, he's like, "Hey, can you hold this? Let me go back. I forgot some tools," and took off in the car. And he was selling this. He was going to sell this little girl. He said his words. He was going to sell this little girl internationally, and he was on his way to Mexico to meet people. Yeah, It happens all the time. It's just that when you see the initial story, the news doesn't follow up, and people aren't aware that this is like a normal thing. It happens all the time. I wish it wasn't, but it happens all the time. And I think that Madeline McCann and I think Brittany Drexel were a victim of these kinds of organizations. And the blind in the right eye thing, I think it means something. I think it's significant.
I agree. Let me address this super chat really quick. First of all, Anthony is not a Trump supporter, so the fact that he is here giving $5 to us, he really dislikes Trump a lot, and he can tell just from our happy faces and positive attitudes that we are both Trump supporters. So, yeah, so thank you for the $5. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you so much.
I love it when people pay you because they have cognitive dissonance. I'm like, yes, thank you. Yes, I agree with you. Nice, thanks.
Well, other than like paying, I like having a place where we can have like a difference of opinions. For instance, I see people in the chat right now who I know who are not.
It's important.
Like they don't love me as much as I love myself. But that's okay. They're more than welcome to be here. They're more than welcome to say whatever comments that they'd like, whether they're nasty, whether they're mean, because eventually.
Lauren, if we were all the same, wouldn't the world be a really boring place? I love differing opinions because, believe it or not, the people that differ in my opinion, I can learn from. If everybody's saying the same thing and I'm surrounded by people that all agree with me, I'm just as bad as Hollywood is with their echo chamber. And I don't want to be like them. I want to think.
That. So I did notice that you said that it was like bushes that you thought were the main.
They were Bohemian Grove. They were actually in the video. Yeah, the Bohemian Grove video that came out. I think it was 2000.
Yeah.
From Alex Jones. Yeah.
But you haven't seen anything about Biden. I'm surprised. I thought you were.
If you want to hear my crazy. If we're gonna go conspiracy, let's go because I got some crazy. Yep. There you go. Wait, there you go.
Is this the video or is this like a clip from the video? Hello?
The video is them standing around the fire in front of the giant effigy of Moloch with the child in the coffin that they're casting their cares on. Yeah, Eisenhower, all of them, dude. They're all. It's a big club and we ain't in it. To quote Carlin. But this is I think from right about the same time. That's right. That's the right look.
Look at Alex Jones. Look how cute.
Look at that. Look at that freaking owl god. Look at that. Okay. That statue of Moloch.
Are we about to actually see?
Yeah, he's such a baby there. Oh my goodness, I forgot.
I know. Look how cute, like a young Alex Jones.
You can tell he's like stripped his vocal cords several times. Again, like I'm not saying that he isn't fighting for the right thing. I'm just saying that like there's a period of time there where he kind of like wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the people that are going to sue him for like, what is it? They said trillions, like billions of dollars, right? I'm like, well, good luck getting blood from a stone because like you made it where the guy can't work. So how are you going to take his money? Like, what the hell? Where are you going to get this money from, guys? Like, come on, stop it. And how do they decide who gets money first? What's really creepy is, and I'm going to say it, and I hope this doesn't get this dragged down, but I'm going to say it. When it comes to the SANDY space, HOOK situation, all of the parents have all these really creepy, nonprofit organizations, which no one for some reason will investigate. And then there's the case, and I have seen this myself, so I know this is real, where if you go to the county office that does the taxes for that area, someone lit me up on this. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. And I went and looked deep into this. And I actually went to the page and looked at this, where all of the homes were paid off December 25th, 2009. All of them. In the area, and there's no it's very weird. They took that down, so you can't do that anymore. But I'm sure someone's got screenshots somewhere. If you guys have those, please, send them to me or to Lauren. franticbooking@gmail.com if you got anything you want to send me in regards to this case, the Madeline McCann case, any of this stuff. I would love to see it.
Okay, so you think that Alex Jones is right about the SH stuff, or no?
I don't think he's 100% right. I think that there's questions that need to be asked that have been asked. I think that it's really suspicious.
Why?
I mean,
But
not
okay,
just that
but
one. I think it's
you agree that they were children, right? And that those were parents of real children, and those children really went to a school.
yeah, but I don't think the nonprofits that were set up were necessarily set up by the parents.
Okay, but you agree like those parents had children, and those children died that day.
From
Or
all
no?
evidence that I can point to, I would say yes. In this case, yes. There are some weird pictures out there. There are some weird connections that some people have made. But then again, that's one of those like rabbit holes that I started to go down, and then I just got frustrated. And then it's very difficult to find information, especially when it comes to children. If it was adults, right, or even high school kids, it would have been a lot easier to find more evidence. But because they're young children, there's just not a lot to go on there. It's a really big quagmire, and it's beyond my skills to do that investigative like level of things. And I just don't believe anything someone tells me in a video until I can prove it to myself. I don't like repeating, someone else's work. I try to do my own. But I will tell you this, Lauren, it's extremely suspect when it comes to the David Hogg situation in Parkland, how it's right next to a town called Hollywood. And about the fact that his father was working for the FBI, setting up how to deal with these kind of situations. And there's that hole where he's in a closet and the timestamp doesn't match, and then he furiously rode his bike to school. There's a lot of weird stuff there, too. And Hollywood, Florida, by the way, is the town that the 9/11 hijackers trained at. So just weird, right?
Yeah.
Over.
Okay, so Michael Portnoy wants to know if any of this is connected to the Idaho 4.
Ooh, see, now that's new. So there's not a lot of information. There's definitely some weird stuff with that one as well. Again, I think it's ritualistic. I really think that's a ritualistic murder. I think John Benet Ramsey was ritualistic. When you start, it is a dark hole. Some of this you guys don't even know. Like I have gone off my rocker. I used to go around and check I couldn't sleep. I'd get up and check all my doors and windows because I had a young child at the time and I was like freaking out. I slapped a camera out of someone's hand at the park because they were taking pictures of the equipment for the website or whatever. And I thought they were taking a picture of my child, and I slapped someone's camera out their hand. I was like, not my kid. So, I mean, it's very dark, some of the stuff when you get into it. Right. I was like, maybe I need to take a break from this stuff. I was definitely black pilled for a while, but now I'm white pilled, and that's where I'm living. I'm living in this space. When I choose to look at the stuff I do. But yes, I think the Idaho thing was ritualistic. I think the Parkland thing was ritualistic. I think the SANDY space, HOOK thing was definitely ritualistic. I think that's the thing that links all this stuff. It's not going to be the suspects. It's not going to be the people who commit the crime. It's not even going to be people that are connected to the crime necessarily. But there is a shared ritualistic, little details that you notice when you start digging into this stuff and you become an expert at it. You can see the things that connect them. It's very strange stuff.
This is kind of a left field question. Do you believe that the eye thing is like symbolic of like alien or like lizard people, and is that what you think that is?
Well, it's funny because I call the elite, I refuse to call them that because they're not better than us. If anything, they're worse than us. So I don't call them elites, but I call them lizard people because it makes them mad and because they're using the reptilian brain. So they're very reptilian brain in the way that they think, very much, a hardcore, no empathy. So I do call them lizard people. But when it comes to the lizard people, like actual people that are actually lizards, that one's really difficult. I mean, but how would you get a picture of something that's like, multidimensional anyways? You can't. I'll tell you this much, though, and I'm going to sound like a crazy person, but screw it. We're there now. We're living in this space. Now we're in this room.
Yeah.
I watched I was at a spirituality convention because I used to be a paranormal investigator when I was like 18, 19, 20, 21. And I went to a spirituality convention because they asked me to speak about some of the research that I, uncovered and some of the, cases that I dealt with, because I've always been like a debunk everything until you can prove otherwise. And I actually saw a lady in the front row, and I could have just been tired of covering the lights, but I saw a lady's face change. And for the longest time, I told people it was a dragon face, people that I trusted enough to even speak about it to.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 20 years old, 21. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to send you a picture. I actually have a whole, I'm so glad that if someone murders me, I hope they make it look like an accident, because the cops going through my phone is going to be weird for them. They're going to be like, oh my God, what's this woman involved with? But I'm going to send you a picture that I have actually that describes to you what the meanings of each eye are, and how they're related and what that means.
My
Uh,
friend Turtle Boy wants to know kind of like a little bit about who you are and why you're wrapped up in this true crime type stuff.
because I believe in justice, and I believe that if I found something, you got to remember this: the little girl, this girl, Brittany Drexel, she was supposedly like due to one of these like jailhouse stories about the Taylor family saying that they took her and that they shot her twice and fed her to an alligator pit, which we now are told doesn't seem to be true, which is why I didn't mention it yet. But the house that they supposedly kept her in is a house that the end of that road, my car had broken down before when I was 17. So I empathize with this case, and I started looking at every single aspect of it. I don't know. I believe in God, and I believe you're called to do certain things. I was called to look into this case because I could not get away from it as much as I tried. It kept haunting me. It still haunts me. It's haunting me right now.
Okay. Well, so are you I'm sorry that you're haunted by that past case, but I am glad that it got you into true crime. And now people, it seems, are really curious about the Idaho 4 thing. Do you think the bushy eyebrow guy was the one? And was it, and, and you've been following that case closely? I'm asking. Well,
Yeah, again, when something's new, and this comes to anything that I look into research on. I mean, anything that I mean, if it's a new case, I kind of like don't spend any time looking into it yet because there's no point. Because when it comes time to look at it, which will be like a year or so, that's when all the details will come out. There'll be a lot of stuff that they hold back, for good reason, I'm sure. But there's going to be a lot of stuff that they hold back in regards to these cases. So I just feel like I'm not going to go dig into this now and get
yeah.
emotionally attached because it really tears me up. Like this stuff like really gets to you after a while. And because it's one of those things, like I try to wait and hold off so I can have all of that emotional, pain that comes with, looking into someone's death, especially a group of young people. I try to hold that off and do it all at once. So.
Okay. So, do you think that they have the right person in that case, even though you haven't really looked into it? What is your gut feeling telling you?
Well, anytime the media like piles on that this is the guy, I got questions always. And here's the weird thing about that case, the Idaho case. So, do you know how they found him? Do you know what they used to find him? They'll say a DNA.
Like DNA on the sheath of a cover of a knife.
Yes, and they said that they used it. They ran it through a DNA like library. Well, do you know that in like the quiet of the summer, I think it was the summer of 2021, maybe a little bit before that, during when everyone was dealing with all this COVID stuff, BlackRock bought Ancestry.com. The Mormons own Ancestry.com. My grandfather used to go to, and he'd ride his motorcycle to Salt Lake City to go do research because he said that they had a mountain that was full of documents on every person's genealogy and their background and who they're related to and who their family is. So my grandfather used to go to do genealogy like research there. So the Mormon church, in interest of like trying to follow that stuff, they actually started Ancestry.com. And so people started submitting their DNA to Ancestry.com. I mean, when did that come out? Like years ago? 10 years ago? Longer maybe? So the BlackRock bought Ancestry.com. The library that they used to find this guy was Ancestry.com. There were no warrants filed. There was no like pushback. They just
Right.
gave them this information. And I'm sitting there going, well, they're going to give them this. What else are they giving them? Like, doesn't the consumer, doesn't the third party, the consumer have the right to their own freaking DNA?
No,
Someone should
actually,
be
it
asking.
went to. Yeah, no,
It's weird.
that's a very interesting lead. Henry, can you
This
please
isn't the
write this
first one
down
either.
for a video idea? It's true that there's legal discussion right now, but as of right now, if you give your DNA to a third party, they're allowed to sell whatever information they gather to another person. So
The really
they,
crazy thing, this isn't the first time they've used the Ancestry.com database in order to
yeah,
identify someone that was a murderer in
and it
Idaho.
wasn't even they didn't even identify it was the father who had submitted the 23andMe test or whatever it was, not
Mhm.
even the son. and then they matched the DNA paternally, and they could tell, oh, this DNA matches somebody who is the son of somebody who matches this DNA, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
I definitely think like that, like as a consumer, as someone, like we're literally paying them money to put us in a creepy database that anybody can search, and it might not be a problem right now. It
hold
might
on.
not be a
Chernobyl
problem.
says it's not the father. I could have sworn I read that it was the father whose DNA would. Did you read about it? That is the father whose DNA that they matched. I could have sworn, but
All I know is that I looked at this again. I haven't done a deep dive on it yet. I will. No questions asked. I'm going to. It's
have you
on
been
my list.
following the Brian Laundrie case at
Mhm.
all as well? What's your opinion on that?
Wait, which one is that one again?
So when he killed his girlfriend and they went on that road trip, and that one
Yeah,
was all
yeah.
over the
That one definitely is weird. Again, we're talking about national forest disappearance stuff, national forest murders, right? Bodies found. Like, and the parents probably knew. There's a lot of weird stuff with that one. I agree. I have looked into it a little bit, but because like what was it, Gabby, God, the influencer or whatever, the one that's
Yeah,
living in a van.
Gabby
Yeah,
Petito.
Gabby Petito. Yeah, that case was very strange. Lauren, I just sent you. I sent you the wrong two ones by accident, but I just sent you on Twitter the picture of the eye
Oh,
chart, which is kind of interesting.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
Gabby Petito. That was a weird one. Right about the time that happened, I was deep diving into what's her name, the smart girl that Kristen. There's like
yeah.
three. Elizabeth
Uh-huh.
Smart, one of them that disappeared from the college in California. And oh my God, that's another crazy wild ride. We'll have to get into that one sometime because that's an hour at least of content discussing like the ins and outs of that crazy case. And they did have an arrest in that one recently. I think it was Kristen Smart.
And do you think that arrest was correct?
I do. I do. What's really crazy is that the guy who was arrested here, it's right here. I'll come up with his name real quick. I have a good memory, but it's not perfect. So when you look into all this stuff, sometimes things get crossed over. So I want to make sure that I'm right before I say something. Yeah. So basically, Kristen Smart, she disappeared in California at Cal Poly University in May 25th, 1996. The person who was investigated, I'll find his name right here. Chris Lambert. No, that's wrong. Shit. Sorry, I just cursed.
No,
Try
you're
not to.
fine.
Wasn't prepared to talk about this, otherwise I have notes in front of me. Although I left half the notes in my garage about the Brittany Drexel, but like through my accident coming up here because I was like, oh my gosh, totally downstairs, not gonna leave to go
I'm
handle
sorry
that.
for putting you on the spot.
Oh no, it's fine. There is no such thing as a spot because it's not like you can't pull it up. You got a calculator and access to everything in your phone. Okay, so Paul Flores was the guy that walked Kristen Smart home from a party, and then she disappeared. And like, then they didn't find a body. Well, here's the crazy thing: his mother had this piece of property, and she'd rented it out. And the mother, like, he said some comments to somehow like say like the next day to his roommate about, you see the girl that disappeared? Yeah, your mom's house, something like that. It was really weird. But the mother owned this property, and she, not long after Kristen Smart disappeared, she cemented over, she redid the garage floor, right? And she cemented over a bunch of the backyard, right? But had these flower beds that she built. The people that rented the property from her, so that every morning at about 4:20, 4:30 in the morning, they would hear what sounded like a clock, an alarm clock, like a watch going off like an alarm every morning. And then one day it just stopped. And she
Oh, do
got
you
up
think
for
like it was like
swim.
a dead
She was a
person
swim
buried with
instructor.
a
She would get up
lot?
at 4:30 in the morning. Yeah. That one I was like, chills. Yeah. And I think that guy totally did it. That one wasn't ritualistic. That's why you don't hear about it. That's not one that's like, when the media, national media covers stuff, when everybody's talking about it and no one will shut up, those are the ones you really should look at, because you have to remember, if what I think is true, and I could be crazy, I could be wrong. You don't have to believe me, but the dark things that I think exist in our reality, like in the same plane of existence as we exist in, that interact with us and interfere with us in our lives, I think they feed off a negative energy. So the more negative energy, like if you cry over, a shooting at a school, even though you don't know that person, you don't know any of these people, you don't know any of their family, you don't even know anybody who's family of that family, and you cry over this, right? Or you get upset or you're emotionally charged or angry, you're feeding this global, like, system that feeds these dark, dark things. I think that
Mm,
that's one of the reasons that they cover it. There's a reason why they don't make puff pieces. There's a reason that bad news is the news everybody hears first. It's not because there isn't just bad news going on. It's because for some reason we are drawn to this weird parasitic energy conversation that goes on. And I think that when you have these national stories and there's a lot of heat and people are donating money to it and they're having they're speaking on CNN and having town halls and all that nonsense, right? Like the guy who did it, Nicholas Cruz, they got the guy.
right.
What else do you want? Like what else? You saw that weird stuff that happened recently with the defense attorney where she flipped off the prosecutor in the Nicholas Cruz trial. Did you see that? And had to apologize.
See that. Henry, can you pull up a video of the prosecutor flipping off, or sorry, the defense attorney flipping off the prosecutor in the Nicholas Cruz case?
Anytime we donate, and for lack of a better word, donate our emotions to these cases, right? When we get upset and we get sad and we get beat up emotionally, I think there are things that are feeding off of that. And I think it's intentional. I think that there's some dark, dark, dark people in power, not just in the United States, all over the world. And I think it's very old. I think that this is not new stuff. These are not new religions. Moloch's not a new god. He didn't just fall out the sky for skull and bones to worship. Like, no, it's not like that. Like, these things have been around since the beginning of time. I mean, you've got all these child sacrificial gods that for some reason these occult societies love to hold up as something to worship. I think that's really weird.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely...
Yeah. I think this is just him, like, mad about what happened. Let's see if they cut to the pink man. By the way, Lauren, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you're here. You're so well informed and about all of this. And I'm wondering, where do you get most of your source pulling? And that judge looks so familiar. Was she a judge on another big case other than the Nicholas Cruz case? Or was
I don't know. I'd have to see her forehead move first. Nope, still hasn't moved yet.
It reminds me of the judge from Darrell Brooks, but I think it's a different judge. They just look somewhat similar.
Oh, geez, he looks like Jeffrey Dahmer there. I wonder if that was intentional.
This video.
There you go. And he laughs.
But
okay, that kid, that is a kid, by the way. That kid's life is over no matter what. So, I mean, of course he doesn't care. He's already, I mean, if he did it, again, there's a lot of footage, some weird stuff out there. If he did this, it's over for him. Even if he didn't, even if he was like Casey Anthony, where he didn't do it and got out, and it turns out, yes, the FBI set this whole thing up and it was intentional, and like there was, FBI, people doing this and blaming it on this kid. Even if that comes out, his life is over. It's over. He's never going to have a normal life again. It's over. So of course he doesn't care.
So you don't think that he did this? You think that this is like FBI pinning this?
Oh, well, I don't know. Again, you have to consider the source when you get information, right? When you look at videos, when you look at pictures, there's a lot of kooky stuff out there, and there's a lot of woo, and there's a lot of people that just play the game of telephone where they tell you what they heard from someone else that heard from someone else. And I like to prove things with documents. I like to have paperwork. I like to have archives. I like to have photographs. I like to have video, like actual video that I can prove was from that location, like without any questions. I like to have things I can put my hands on, or else I have to put it to the side until I can. And this is one of those where even if I have an inkling, I'm not going to jump on that. I'm going to let time do its job, and the truth will come out eventually. But that's true in everything. That people think that like they can get away with. It's hilarious. I love a liar because they tell on themselves, because they accuse someone of being a liar. I love a cheater because they accuse you of cheating first. I love a thief because they can never like just lock their car. They got to click the button like 3 times because that's their reality. That's where they live. They have to live in the hell that is everyone's lying to me. I can't trust anyone. Everyone's cheating on me. I can't trust anyone. Everyone's trying to steal from me. I have to lock up all my stuff all the time. Like that sucks. But the cool thing about the truth is that these people don't ever seem to realize this. The truth always comes out. Whether it's 5 minutes, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, 5 decades, the truth always comes out. They just depend on people not caring anymore by the time it does a lot of times. That's why I like older cases, because there's a lot more to work with.
Well, speaking of an older case, Michael Portnoy wants to know if you think OJ is guilty.
I do not.
No,
That's a good
you
question.
don't. Stop.
I don't think he did it. I don't think he did it. You want to know why? You want to know why I don't think he did it?
Because the glove didn't fit, so we have to quit. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think he did it. I think he didn't do it because his son was convicted of trying to stab someone and is now living in a mental institution. And his son has, again, hearsay, but his son has been saying that he killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. His son hated Nicole Brown Simpson and hated anybody she brought to the house. Now, if that were not true, why else would he have a 40-mile-an-hour police chase down the highway unless he was trying to give his son time to get away? Just saying.
You think that he was?
He's in jail right now, or he's in a mental hospital right now.
How old was his son when this happened?
I can't remember. I can look it up real quick. But then again, I really think that police chase was extremely suspect. Now, we're talking LA. When you think about it, it's one thing to say facts, but it's another thing to look at things culturally when there's significance. This is LA that just got done with the LA riots, okay? A black man in a white Bronco going 40 miles an hour down the interstate in a police chase, that's really crazy. That doesn't make any sense. He should have feared for his life. He should have gone as fast as possible because there's no guarantee he wasn't going to get pulled out of that car and beaten, no matter how famous he was, right? So that was a really, really weird police chase, and everyone was watching it. And I really do think that gave his son, who he covered for, an opportunity to get away. And there's been things he said throughout the years. Y'all just look it up. Look into that theory, because there's a lot of evidence from things that they've said, things that OJ has said, right? If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, I have looked at a lot of stuff, but if I'm not mistaken, the If I Did It book came out when his son was looking to be released, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Again, you got to dig into it yourself. Here it is. Hang on. Can you zoom in? I wish I could make this full. Oh, yeah, I can. Here we go. I can make that full screen. Yeah. His son was 7 years old. Yes. And he is now living in a mental institution for doing the same thing, for stabbing someone to death. I love how they didn't list Khloe Kardashian.
His father started dating Nicole. Can we figure out how old he was when Nicole died? Because do you think
his brother? If you look here, see where it says 1-year-old Aaron tragically drowned in the family pool months after his parents' divorce.
How old do you think he must have been? You think that he killed his sibling as well?
Maybe. I do not know. Again, I really do think that there's a strong suggestion that something's up here. That also, how could you not have a glove that didn't fit? This explains why the DNA matched, number one, because it's his son. If it would have been his daughter, it'd be different because of the Y chromosome. But it's the son, so it matched. This explains why the glove didn't fit, because you got to remember, OJ was hawking goods for isotoner. How could he have a pair of gloves that didn't fit? That doesn't make any sense. He was selling their gloves. So unless it was his son's hand.
The only reason I would say the glove wouldn't fit is because it rained that night and it was a leather glove. So
maybe, but I mean,
it would get crunchy and stiff and
I'd have to run some tests, and I might, now that I think about it, I might actually run some tests on that. But I just think it's interesting that his father worked for Isotoner, how many gloves? Everybody who knew probably got a pair of gloves, right? So of course, if the glove didn't fit, it would make sense that it would belong to his son because it was that small. It was a small glove. I'm just saying.
So you think it was his son's glove?
And I think maybe even the cops knew about it, which is why they flubbed the scene. Because he'd already lost a brother or whatever. I'm sure that there was sympathy there. I really do think that they knew.
Interesting.
I mean, it's just a theory, but there's a lot of evidentiary support.
And
I do not trust the justice system.
And
I mean, how
evidence,
many people?
The evidence today, we could tell the difference between a son and a father. But are you saying back then the DNA evidence wasn't strong enough where we could tell the difference between a father?
Yeah, it was 1995. It was 1994. Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see them run that DNA again, and then I'll say, you know what, you're right, OJ totally probably did it. But I just think that his behavior has been really strange. His son's behavior, obviously, there's something more to that. Again, it's like with Biden. Like, why would you lose your like 3? Not 1, but 2, 3. Like, I've done drugs before, but I've never lost my laptop. Like, I forgot to go get it. Like, right? And the daughter's diary also just happened to disappear. Like, I really do think that, like, Hunter Biden wanted us to find that laptop because I think he wants to expose these monsters for what they are.
All right.
Just saying.
Well, I think this has been a really great show. I think that we should take a couple of questions from chat.
Absolutely.
If they have any, and then we should wrap it up. But you've been great. Thank you so much for being here, Missy.
Anytime, Lauren. Anytime you want me, I'm happy to come back. And once I dig more into like the Idaho case, then I'll probably have some more answers for you on that. It's just, again, like, I'm not gonna like waste the energy like now because I think most of what we're being told is BS. So.
Well, I also want to thank Snake in the Grass, and I also want to thank Anthony for the super chat. That's really cool, especially Anthony because he disagrees with me, and Snake in the Grass because she's a clip podcast who maybe we disagree about certain people, but I think it's cool that she still supports. So cool on you. So the crazy dingo, who's kind of a jerk, he wants to know what your favorite drug is, but you don't have to answer that.
Alcohol and maybe sugar.
Someone wants to know if you ever had a kidnapping or near kidnapping experience.
I don't want to get into that. It's personal, but let's just say yes. But I really don't want to get into that one. Again, there's a reason I have a passion for these situations and these kids, and there's a reason I think the way that I think, and there's a reason why. I just don't want to get into it because who knows where I'm going to be in a couple of years, and everyone saves everything, so I'd rather not go into details. But yeah, I've seen some things. I've been through some stuff. I think all women have at this point.
I'm sorry to hear
that. That's okay.
Yeah,
again, there's a reason why, like, I have such a passion for finding the truth. I don't think that lying or covering things up or just finding someone to pin a murder on is a way to do business. I really do question, like, what these professors are thinking about. Yeah, he's not moving.
Are you following
her forehead was like so shiny.
The Gray Pill podcast. He wants to thank you on behalf of Black people for your opinion on OJ Simpson. However, he disagrees with you. And then he also wants to know if you're following the Andrew Tate case.
I am following that case. As a matter of fact, I was in a Twitter space with what is his name? Mario. What is his last name? I can't remember right now off the top of my head. You just look Mario Spaces, you'll find his stuff. But he was actually supposed to interview Andrew Tate, and Andrew Tate, like, in a couple days, and when Andrew Tate got arrested. That's definitely going to be something that I'm waiting for more information to come out on. I was friends. Like, actually knew him, was invited to go on a sailboat in, like, Georgetown in the Bahamas. I was friends with John McAfee since 1999, wow. Friends with him. And I saw what happened to John, and he would call me from all over. I changed my phone number, and he called me on my new number. I was like, how did you even get this? Like, it was really crazy. But talking to him and being there with him while he went through being harassed by, like, Belizean government and having them asking for money when he was, like, trying to, like, find cancer research, and the people that have accused him of going, there's trash, and, like, accused him of all this crazy stuff that don't really actually know him, and I actually know him. Got hearts, put prayers and hearts to Janice, his wife, because she's struggling because they won't give his body to her. We'll come back and talk about him if you want to sometime in the future. But after I saw what he went through, I'm not the least bit surprised that they arrested Andrew Tate and they took all of his cars and are like making an example out of him. Because I mean, why would you keep your hookers at your really, really nice home in a really nice neighborhood? That kind of traffic you don't want in your home. You don't want it in that neighborhood because everyone's gonna like Karen on you. It was like I know it's like not like Romania is not like a super classy like first world country. I know that. I know that he's had quotes where he said that that's where he went to get away with stuff that he couldn't get away with in other countries. But the area that he lived in is really, really nice. And I really do think that they are just trying to exploit money off of him because they keep bringing up old cases and there's not really a lot of information on the new cases.
Interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens with that. I'm gonna keep digging into it. I was there, like I was in a room talking to like his cousins and his brothers and stuff when that stuff went down in Twitter Spaces.
Is there a place that you're making content right now where people could follow you if they wanted to see like a video on the Andrew Tate? Yeah, go up, please plug all of your stuff. Use this opportunity right now.
Well, I have a YouTube, but it's like my personal garbage. So I actually do I actually do a Saturday Night Live show. It's 3 hours. The first hour is news. The second hour is like tomorrow we're talking about monolithic and megalithic structures all over the world and how they're connected, and possibly some stuff about Tartaria. And then the third hour, we have people we bring in through StreamYard that can come up and ask questions one-on-one, and they get 5 minutes to ask us anything they want about the case that we just went through. But the first hours, just like going through the news of the week, the crazy stuff that the read between the headlines stuff, like people should notice. And then the second hour is we're going to start having guests. Our first one's going to be Shepherd Umbrellas, as in atnlive.com. He owns a media company. He put out documentaries. Shep is awesome. So Shep's going to be our first guest, and that's going to be next Saturday. But every Saturday starting at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time till 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have 3 hours of a show, and we try to have it fun. We try to have it funny. It's a little bit coast to coast, a little bit talk soup, and a little bit of, tinfoil hat. And, I would love to see you guys there. I'd love to have the support. That's under the Smoking Gun Cafe channel on YouTube. And I'm going to start doing a series of shorts there as well once we get things set up with the show under the name Fucking Knowledge. I just put an F in front of the word knowledge because nothing is silent. And I'm going to start doing shorts on this kind of information. Just a minute and a half of just punch-packed, fact. So that's going to be coming out soon as well. I also have a Twitter, Frantic Missy on Twitter. I highly recommend you check out Twitter Spaces. There's some really great groups in there. There's a UFO group that, we talk about everything from metaphysics to, space time and, how it relates to the activity that's paranormal here on Earth can be explained by physics, things like that. There's some crazy people, but there's a lot of really interesting topics. So I highly recommend that group. On Sunday nights, I do a show on Twitter Spaces called Who's This, What's That? And it's a comedy show, and it's really inappropriate. So bring your sense of humor, or, you don't have to like it. You might not be your cup of tea. But if you like seeing people say the worst thing humanly possible about a picture, describing what it is, wrong answers only, I highly recommend coming and check it out. So I got a lot going on. And I have a bunch of other interviews with a bunch of other people. The one that just dropped from yesterday was Micah Dank. He's just put out his 8th book. That's the site right there. It's called Allegedly. And then there's this for tomorrow's show.
Smoking Gun Cafe, so everybody sub that up, and then also sub Frantic Missy on Twitter. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. We got to come back and talk about McAfee because McAfee used in my brain. Friends with the guy for years. I can't believe I just even did that. It's upsetting what happened with him, but I would love to go over the details of everything that happened with him because I was there. I was on the phone with him when he eluded the police in Cuba. He's sending me pictures of him being got the wrong guy, haha, tricked him. And I was like, yeah, he had someone else get arrested in his stead. There's a lot to unpack there. Wow. So yeah, I would love to come back and talk about him anytime you want. Again, right now his wife Jan is trying to get his body back from the Spanish police, so Spanish jail.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for being here, and we'll close it out here, Henry, whenever you want. We're just going to dance it on out because I don't...
Thank you guys for having me, by the way.
Bye.